Moving on, we have Loki. Loki Laufeyson was born as a frost giant, the biological son of Laufey, king of Jotunheim. But unlike other frost giants, Loki was born unusually small. His father Laufey considered this a shameful defect and abandoned the infant, hiding him away from the rest of his people. During a war between Asgard and the frost giants, Odin, the king of Asgard, killed Laufey in combat. After the battle, Odin discovered the abandoned baby hidden in the frost giant's fortress. Taking pity on the child, and also fulfilling a promise to his own dying father Bor, Odin adopted Loki and brought him to Asgard. He raised Loki alongside his biological son Thor, and for years, Loki did not know the truth about his origins. Growing up in Asgard, Loki always felt different from his brother and the other Asgardians. Thor was strong, brave, and skilled in combat, embodying everything the Asgardians valued most. Loki was physically weaker and smaller than Thor, which made him feel inferior. The Asgardians celebrated warriors who showed great strength and courage in battle, but these were areas where Loki could not compete with his brother. Instead of accepting defeat, Loki turned to different paths. He discovered he had a natural talent for magic and sorcery, abilities that were uncommon among Asgardian men at the time. Loki studied these arts intensely, eventually becoming one of the most powerful magic users in all of Asgard. As a child, Loki was mischievous and enjoyed playing pranks on Thor and others around him. These tricks started innocently enough, but as Loki grew older and his jealousy toward Thor deepened, his mischief became more malicious. He earned the nickname God of Mischief, which later transformed into something darker, the God of Evil. The constant attention and love that Odin and the Asgardians showed Thor fueled Loki's resentment. He wanted to prove himself worthy and powerful, and eventually, this desire twisted into a hunger for the throne of Asgard itself. Loki's magical powers are vast and varied. His greatest strength lies in illusion casting, which allows him to create images so realistic that even powerful beings like the fire demon Surtur can be fooled. Loki can make entire cities see things that are not real, or create perfect duplicates of himself that appear completely solid rather than ghostly like most illusions. He is also a master shapeshifter, able to transform into animals, other people, or even inanimate objects. In Norse mythology and Marvel Comics, Loki has turned into snakes, horses, and countless other forms. His shapeshifting is so advanced that some have suggested his current appearance might just be one shape he has chosen to maintain. Beyond illusions and shapeshifting, Loki possesses telepathic abilities that allow him to project his thoughts across vast distances, even across different dimensions. He can send mental messages from Asgard to Earth, or influence the actions of people with evil thoughts in their minds. Loki can also use hypnosis on others, though this power has limits and cannot always work on the strongest-willed individuals like Thor. He has teleportation abilities, allowing him to vanish and reappear elsewhere, and he can manipulate objects with telekinesis, though he rarely uses this power in battle. Loki can also bring inanimate objects to life, transform matter from one thing to another, and grant temporary superpowers to other beings. As an Asgardian, Loki possesses superhuman physical abilities, even without his magic. He has incredible strength, able to lift up to 50 tons, though he is not as physically powerful as Thor. His body is far more durable than a human's, and he can withstand injuries that would kill a mortal. Loki ages very slowly, having lived for over 1,000 years while maintaining the appearance and vitality of someone in their physical prime. He has an advanced healing factor that allows him to recover from wounds much faster than humans, though his magical abilities make his healing even more effective than that of normal Asgardians. Despite his incredible powers, Loki's greatest weapon has always been his genius-level intellect. He is a master strategist and manipulator who thinks several steps ahead of everyone around him. Loki excels at creating complex, long-term plans that involve manipulating multiple people and situations at once. He is an expert at deception and playing on people's weaknesses, and he has repeatedly gained the trust of others, only to betray them when it serves his purposes. Loki also possesses significant knowledge of science and technology, having created various machines and devices to enhance his schemes. Throughout his existence, Loki has died and returned to life multiple times. His deaths are rarely noble. More often, Loki dies because his schemes backfire or because he pushes others too far. During one major storyline called Siege, Loki manipulated Norman Osborn and his Dark Avengers into attacking Asgard. When the powerful being called the Void began destroying Asgard, Loki realized his plan had gone too far. In an uncharacteristic act, he tried to help the heroes using magical stones called the Norn Stones. The Void killed Loki for this betrayal, and his last words to Thor were simply, "I am sorry, brother." But Loki had prepared for death. He had made an arrangement with various beings of death to remove his name from the Book of Hell, which meant he could not truly die. Instead, Loki was reborn in Paris, France, as a young boy with no memory of his previous life. Thor found him working as a street hustler under the name Serur, the French word for lock. This version became known as Kid Loki. Thor restored some of Kid Loki's memories and identity, but the boy did not remember the evil deeds of his past life. Kid Loki genuinely wanted to be good and worked to earn the trust and respect of others. Kid Loki discovered that his death and rebirth were part of a plan created by his previous self. An echo of the old Loki appeared as a spirit, trying to convince Kid Loki to continue the original Loki's schemes. Kid Loki refused and transformed this spirit into a magpie he named Ekol. However, Ekol secretly plotted against Kid Loki. Eventually, through a complicated series of events involving the demon Nightmare and something called the Fear Crown, Ekol tricked Kid Loki into giving up his body and mind. Kid Loki was essentially killed as Ekol took over his body, creating a third version of Loki who possessed the body of Kid Loki, but the memories and cunning of the original Loki. This new Loki, influenced by Kid Loki's innocence and guilt over what he had done, began trying to reform himself. He joined the Young Avengers alongside heroes like Wiccan, Hulkling, and others. During this time, Loki's teammate Wiccan used his reality-altering powers to age Loki's child body into that of a teenager. This Loki was still a trickster and occasionally lied to his teammates, but he genuinely tried to help them and do the right thing more often than his predecessors. Eventually, Loki decided to change his title from God of Lies to God of Stories, finding this a more positive identity while still reflecting his nature. The multiverse introduced even more versions of Loki. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe's Loki television series, an alternate version of Loki from 2012 escapes with the Tesseract and is captured by the Time Variance Authority, an organization that monitors timelines. This Loki encounters numerous variants of himself, including Sylvie, a female Loki who was taken from her timeline as a child and spent her life seeking revenge against the TVA. Sylvie has many similarities to Loki but is more direct and heroic in her motivations, caring less about power and glory and more about destroying the organization that ruined her life. Other Loki variants include Classic Loki, an older version who managed to survive much longer than the main timeline's Loki, and Kid Loki from the MCU, who killed Thor in his timeline and became King of the Void. There was even an alligator Loki, proving that Loki variants could be entirely different species. Each variant demonstrated different aspects of Loki's character, from his capacity for heroism to his talent for betrayal. At the conclusion of the Loki series, the main Loki variant made the ultimate sacrifice. To prevent a multiversal war and save all of existence, he destroyed something called the Temporal Loom and used his magic to physically hold all the branching timelines together. Loki now sits alone at the end of time in a place called the Citadel, wrapped in his own magical energy, holding the entire multiverse together with his bare hands. The timelines arrange themselves around him like branches on a tree, resembling the mythological Yggdrasil, the world tree from Norse mythology. In this role, Loki has become the god of stories, protecting every story and timeline that exists or will exist. He gave up his freedom and his chance to be with the people he cared about to ensure the multiverse could survive. Loki's journey from villain to antihero to ultimate protector represents one of the most dramatic character evolutions in comic book history. Born as an outcast, raised in the shadow of a perfect brother, and driven by jealousy and ambition, Loki spent centuries as a force of chaos and destruction. Yet through multiple deaths, rebirths, and encounters with alternate versions of himself, Loki gradually discovered that he could be more than just a villain. His story shows that even the god of mischief could find redemption, though the path there was long, painful, and filled with countless betrayals of both others and himself. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on to Captain America, Steve Rogers. Captain America, Steve Rogers. Steve Rogers was born during the 1922nd as a frail, sickly young man from a poor family in Brooklyn, New York. His childhood was filled with medical problems, including asthma, bone deformity, partial deafness, and diabetes. Despite his weak body, Rogers had an incredibly strong moral character. When World War II began, he desperately wanted to join the military to fight against Nazi Germany and defend his country. However, every recruitment office rejected him because his body was too weak for combat service. His determination caught the attention of a scientist named Dr. Abraham Erskine, who saw something special in Rogers beyond his physical limitations. Dr. Erskine had created something called the Super Soldier Serum while working in Germany. A Nazi general named Johann Schmidt had stolen an early version of this serum and used it on himself, but the formula was incomplete and badly distorted his face, turning him into the villain known as Red Skull. After escaping to America, Dr. Erskine perfected his formula and joined a secret government program called Project Rebirth. The program aimed to create super soldiers who could turn the tide of the war. Rogers volunteered for this dangerous experiment, knowing he might die in the process. The Super Soldier Serum was not just a simple injection. It involved multiple steps, including drinking part of the formula and receiving it through injections. After the serum entered his body, Rogers was bombarded with something called Vita rays, which were special wavelengths of radiation designed to activate and stabilize the serum's effects. The transformation was immediate and dramatic. Rogers emerged from the chamber with a perfect human body, having reached the absolute peak of human physical and mental potential. His strength, speed, stamina, agility, intelligence, and durability were all enhanced to the maximum limits possible for a human being without becoming superhuman. Tragedy struck moments after the success. A Nazi spy who had been watching the experiment murdered Dr. Erskine before he could write down the complete formula. This meant Steve Rogers would be the only person to ever receive the true Super Soldier Serum, making him unique in all of history. Given a costume inspired by the American flag and a shield made from vibranium and steel alloy, Rogers became Captain America and fought throughout World War II alongside his teenage sidekick Bucky Barnes against Nazi forces and the evil Red Skull. Near the end of the war, in 1945, Captain America and Bucky tried to stop a bomb-loaded drone plane launched by a villain named Baron Zemo. The plane exploded over the freezing waters of the North Atlantic Ocean. The blast seemingly killed Bucky and threw Rogers into the icy water. The Super Soldier Serum prevented his body from freezing solid, putting him into a state of suspended animation where he stayed alive but unconscious. Decades later, a superhero called the Submariner discovered Rogers still frozen in ice. The Avengers revived him, and Captain America found himself awake in the modern world, decades after the war ended. Captain America represents something deeper than just patriotism or blind loyalty to the government. While his name and costume come from America, he actually symbolizes the ideals that America claims to stand for, rather than whatever the government decides at any given moment. These ideals include liberty, freedom, justice, equal rights, and protecting the innocent. Rogers has always believed that what is legal is not always what is right. He serves the American people and their values, not politicians or government agencies. When the government or any authority figure acts against these core principles, Captain America stands in opposition, even if it makes him an outlaw. This philosophy led to one of the most significant conflicts in superhero history, known as Civil War. After a terrible accident in Stamford, Connecticut, where villain Nitro caused an explosion that killed hundreds of people, including many children, the United States government passed the Superhuman Registration Act. This law required all people with superpowers to register their real identities with the government, receive training, and essentially become government employees. Those who refused would be arrested and imprisoned. The superhero community split into two sides. Iron Man, also known as Tony Stark, supported the act. He believed superheroes needed proper oversight and accountability. Stark argued that the era of heroes policing themselves was over and that cooperation with the government was inevitable. He even publicly revealed his identity as Iron Man to show his support. On the other side stood Captain America, who saw the Registration Act as a violation of civil liberties and personal freedom. Rogers believed that forcing heroes to reveal their identities would endanger their families, and that working for the government would mean politicians decided who the enemies were, which could lead to heroes being used for political purposes rather than genuine justice. The conflict escalated into actual combat between the two factions. Iron Man's side created a prison in another dimension called the Negative Zone to hold heroes who refused to register. During one battle, a clone of the god Thor, created by Iron Man's team, accidentally killed a hero named Bill Foster, making everyone realize how serious and deadly the conflict had become. Spider-Man, who initially supported Iron Man and publicly revealed his identity as Peter Parker, switched sides after seeing the prison and realizing the Registration Act was wrong. The final battle took place in New York City and caused massive destruction. Captain America's team seemed to be winning when regular people, including firefighters, police officers, and emergency medical workers, grabbed Captain America and begged him to stop. Rogers looked around at the devastated city and realized that his fight to protect people was actually hurting them. Rather than continue the bloodshed, Captain America surrendered even though he did not change his beliefs about the Registration Act being wrong. He was arrested and sent to prison, showing that sometimes doing the right thing means accepting personal sacrifice. The most controversial storyline in Captain America's history came years later with an event called Secret Empire. A villain called Red Skull obtained a sentient cosmic cube named Kobik, which had the power to rewrite reality. Red Skull manipulated Kobik into believing that the terrorist organization Hydra was actually good. When the elderly Steve Rogers needed to be restored to youth, Kobik used her powers on him but also rewrote his memories. She created a version of Captain America who genuinely believed he had been a Hydra agent his entire life. This Hydra version of Captain America spent months secretly planning a takeover of the United States. He used the trust and respect he had earned over decades to position himself in places of power. When his plan activated, Hydra struck simultaneously on multiple fronts. Captain America trapped many heroes, including Captain Marvel, outside Earth using a planetary defense shield. He imprisoned Manhattan in darkness using a villain's powers enhanced by dark magic. He took control of several military bases and declared Hydra's rule over America. The nation fell under fascist control, with mutants forced into designated areas and regular citizens controlled through substances in the water supply. Many heroes went underground to resist, while others were captured or forced to join Hydra's version of the Avengers. The Resistance eventually discovered that the real Steve Rogers was still alive, trapped inside the cosmic cube. His friend, the Winter Soldier, entered the cube and brought both the real Rogers and Kobik back to reality. This created a situation where two versions of Captain America existed, one evil and loyal to Hydra, and the true Captain America. They fought each other in a final battle where the real Steve Rogers defeated his twisted duplicate. The evil Hydra version was imprisoned, and the real Captain America returned, though the damage to his reputation and the trust people had in him took years to repair. Throughout all these stories, Captain America demonstrates that true leadership comes from moral conviction rather than following orders. He leads by example, always putting others before himself, and standing firm in his principles even when the entire world stands against him. His shield represents defense and protection rather than aggression. Rogers fights battles against injustice, intolerance, and cynicism, trying to make the world match the ideals it claims to believe in. He accepts that being a symbol sometimes means becoming a target, and he willingly carries that burden so others do not have to. Captain America shows that the greatest strength is not physical power from a serum, but the courage to do what is right regardless of the personal cost, making him a timeless symbol of heroism that transcends any single nation or era. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on to Deadpool, Wade Wilson. Deadpool, Wade Wilson. Wade Wilson's true identity and childhood remain unclear, as he has many conflicting memories about his past. Different versions of his history exist, and even Wade himself cannot be certain which memories are real. What is known for certain is that Wilson worked as a mercenary and skilled hired gun before his life changed forever. During this time, he met and fell in love with a woman named Vanessa Carlisle, who would become one of the most important people in his life. They formed a dysfunctional but genuine relationship. However, tragedy struck when Wade was diagnosed with terminal cancer that doctors said was completely inoperable. Knowing he was dying, Wade made the painful decision to leave Vanessa rather than let her watch him waste away. Desperate and with nothing to lose, Wade joined a program run by the Canadian government called Weapon X. This was the same program that had created Wolverine years earlier. The scientists promised Wade they could cure his cancer and give him superhuman abilities in exchange for his service. He agreed, hoping for a chance to survive and possibly return to Vanessa someday. The scientists injected Wade with a serum developed from Wolverine's genetic material, specifically his healing factor. The procedure worked in giving Wade a regenerative healing ability, but it did not cure his cancer as promised. Instead of removing the cancer, the healing factor kept Wade alive while his cancer continued to spread throughout his entire body. His healing ability and his cancer entered a constant war with each other, creating a terrible balance. The cancer tried to kill him while the healing factor regenerated his cells faster than the disease could destroy them. This process left Wade horrifically disfigured, with his skin covered in scars, tumors, and deformities that would never heal properly. Because the experiment was considered a failure, Wade was rejected from the main Weapon X program and sent to a facility called the Hospice. The Hospice was supposedly a government facility where failed superhuman experiments received treatment. However, the truth was much darker. Unknown to the Canadian government, the Hospice operated as a secret torture chamber where a scientist named Dr. Emery's Killebrew and his sadistic assistant Ajax conducted painful experiments on the patients for their own twisted satisfaction. The patients, knowing they were all dying or suffering, created a betting pool called the Dead Pool, where they gambled on which patient would die first. This morbid game gave Wade Wilson his eventual superhero name. During his time enduring horrific torture at the hospice, Wade experienced something extraordinary. He came so close to dying on multiple occasions that he actually saw death herself. Not death as a concept, but death as a cosmic entity, a being who personifies mortality itself throughout the entire universe. Death typically appears as a cloaked skeleton or sometimes as a beautiful woman. Wade found himself falling in love with death, and surprisingly, she seemed to return his feelings. She regarded him as a kindred spirit, someone who understood her in ways that others could not. Desperate to escape his suffering and be with death permanently, Wade began actively trying to get himself killed. He taunted Ajax by repeatedly calling him by his real name, Francis, which Ajax hated. Wade hoped Ajax would murder him in anger, allowing him to join death forever. However, instead of killing Wade directly, Ajax began torturing and killing the other patients who had become Wade's friends. This cruelty triggered something in Wade. Rather than seeking death, he now wanted revenge. In his rage and desperation, Wade's healing factor surged, and he finally escaped the hospice facility. He freed the other surviving patients and adopted the name Deadpool from the betting pool, beginning his new life as a mercenary. Deadpool's healing factor is both his greatest power and his worst curse. Unlike normal healing abilities, Wade's regeneration is locked in eternal combat with his cancer. Every wound he heals also causes his cancer to flare up. His body is essentially a walking tumor that regenerates itself constantly. This means Deadpool feels every bit of pain from every injury just like anyone else would. The healing process itself causes excruciating agony as tissue knits back together. He can survive almost anything, including being blown apart, burned, stabbed, shot, and dismembered, but he suffers through all of it consciously. The cancer prevents his healing factor from ever truly restoring him to a healthy state. Without the cancer, his healing factor would grow out of control and consume his entire body. With the cancer, he lives in constant pain and permanent disfigurement. He essentially exists in a state of perpetually dying while simultaneously being unable to die. One of Deadpool's most unique abilities is his awareness that he exists as a character in comic books. This fourth wall awareness did not exist when the character first appeared. When Deadpool debuted as a villain fighting the New Mutants, he was simply a sarcastic mercenary with no meta-awareness. The fourth wall breaking developed gradually over several years of comics, particularly during writer Joe Kelly's run on the character. It became more pronounced and eventually transformed into a core aspect of who Deadpool is. Wade can see the comic book panels, read the caption boxes, reference specific issue numbers, talk directly to readers, and comment on the writers and artists creating his stories. He knows he is fictional. Other characters in the Marvel Universe generally believe Deadpool is simply insane when he makes these references. They think his meta-commentary is part of his psychosis rather than genuine awareness. However, the reader knows Deadpool is actually correct. He truly can perceive the fourth wall and understands his existence as a character. This creates a layer of tragedy beneath the comedy. Deadpool knows he will never truly die because as long as Marvel publishes comics, writers will keep bringing him back. He is trapped in an endless cycle of stories, unable to find the piece of death that he desperately wants. This knowledge would drive most people to madness, and it arguably has affected Deadpool's mental state severely. Deadpool has also dealt with voices in his head represented by different colored caption boxes in the comics. For years, readers saw him arguing with two distinct internal voices. This was later revealed to have a surprising explanation. One of the voices was actually a villain named Madcap, a psychotic enemy of Captain America, who had become molecularly bonded with Deadpool during one of their encounters. Madcap's consciousness merged with Wade's, creating the second voice. Whether Wade has other genuine mental health conditions or if his apparent insanity stems from his fourth wall awareness and constant physical suffering remains unclear. The cosmic entity Death remains one of the great loves of Deadpool's life. However, their relationship became complicated when another of Death's suitors entered the picture. Thanos, the Mad Titan, had been obsessed with Death for years, committing genocide across the universe to try to win her affection. When Thanos learned that Death had feelings for Deadpool, he became insanely jealous. Thanos decided that if he could not have Death, then neither could Wade. Using his cosmic power, Thanos cursed Deadpool with true immortality, making it impossible for Wade to ever die. This curse trapped Deadpool in his painful existence permanently. He could never join Death, no matter how badly he was injured or how much he wanted to end his suffering. The curse remains one of the cruelest things ever done to Deadpool, turning his healing factor into an absolute prison. Despite his traumatic origin and constant suffering, Deadpool uses humor as his primary coping mechanism. He never stops talking, making jokes, breaking the fourth wall, and commenting on everything happening around him. This endless stream of wisecracks, pop culture references, and inappropriate humor earned him the nickname Merc with a Mouth. The comedy serves as armor against the tragedy of his existence. By making everything into a joke, including his own pain, Deadpool maintains some control over his narrative. However, beneath all the jokes lies genuine suffering. The humor masks depression, loneliness, and the psychological damage from years of torture and isolation. Deadpool's moral alignment shifts constantly. He has worked as a villain, an anti-hero, a hero, and everything in between. He has joined teams like X-Force, the Avengers Unity Squad, and even formed his own group called Deadpool Corps, composed of alternate versions of himself from different realities. His relationship with other heroes remains complicated. Some, like Spider-Man and Cable, have formed genuine friendships with Wade, seeing past his chaos to recognize someone trying to do better. Others view him as dangerous and unpredictable. His methods often involve extreme violence and killing, which puts him at odds with traditional heroes who have moral codes against murder. The character's popularity exploded partially because of how different he is from typical superheroes. Deadpool acknowledges the absurdity of superhero comics while existing within them. He calls out plot holes, references other stories, and treats comic book logic with appropriate skepticism. This self-aware humor, combined with genuine pathos, creates a character who is simultaneously funny and heartbreaking. Wade Wilson is a man trapped in constant agony, cursed with immortality, aware he is fictional, unable to be with the woman he loves, and trying desperately to find meaning and connection despite all of it. He hides this tragic reality behind jokes and violence, using comedy as both a shield and a weapon against a universe that has treated him with exceptional cruelty from the moment his story began. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on to the Hulk, Bruce Banner. The Hulk, Bruce Banner. Bruce Banner's childhood was marked by terrible trauma that would shape his entire life. His father, Brian Banner, was an abusive alcoholic who believed young Bruce was some kind of monster due to his exceptional intelligence. Brian was convinced that Bruce's genius was unnatural and dangerous. This paranoia led to constant physical and emotional abuse directed at both Bruce and his mother. The violence escalated until one horrifying day when Brian murdered Bruce's mother right in front of him. This traumatic event occurred when Bruce was only a child. After his father was arrested and sent to a psychiatric facility, Bruce went to live with relatives. The abuse he endured caused Bruce to develop dissociative identity disorder, where he created separate personalities in his mind as a coping mechanism to deal with the overwhelming pain and anger. These personalities remained buried deep in his subconscious, waiting to emerge later in life. Despite his traumatic childhood, Bruce grew into a brilliant nuclear physicist. His genius caught the attention of the United States military, specifically General Thaddeus Ross, who recruited him to work on weapons development. Bruce resisted at first, not wanting his scientific knowledge used for destruction, but eventually accepted a position at a missile base in New Mexico. There he began developing a gamma bomb, a weapon that utilized highly concentrated gamma radiation. At the base, Bruce befriended General Ross's daughter, Betty, who would become the love of his life, though the general himself disliked the quiet, passive scientist. What Bruce did not know was that one of his assistants, Igor, was actually a Russian spy seeking to steal his research. On the day of the gamma bomb's first test, a teenager named Rick Jones drove onto the testing field on a dare from other teenagers. Bruce saw him and rushed out to save the young man, throwing Rick into a protective trench. However, Igor saw this as his opportunity to steal Bruce's plans and allowed the countdown to continue rather than delaying it as Bruce had ordered. The gamma bomb detonated while Bruce was still exposed. The massive dose of gamma radiation should have killed him instantly. Instead, Bruce survived but was changed forever. That evening, Bruce transformed for the first time into a large, gray-skinned monster that soldiers described as a Hulk. The transformation initially happened only at nightfall, but later became triggered by anger, fear, pain, or any surge of adrenaline. The gamma radiation did something unique to Bruce Banner. Rather than simply killing him or giving him straightforward superpowers, the radiation interacted with his existing dissociative identity disorder. All those buried personalities that Bruce had created as a child to cope with abuse suddenly gained physical form as different versions of the Hulk. Each personality represented a different aspect of Bruce's fractured psyche, and each one could manifest as a distinct Hulk with different appearances, intelligence levels, and power sets. This made Bruce's condition far more complex than a simple transformation between two states. The Savage Hulk is the most iconic and recognizable version. He has green skin, massive size, and speaks in simple, childlike language. This personality represents Bruce's inner child, specifically the 6-year-old boy who endured his father's abuse. The Savage Hulk has limited vocabulary and understanding of the world, but possesses incredible strength that increases the more angry he becomes. Theoretically, there is no upper limit to how strong he can get. Despite his rage and power, the Savage Hulk does not actually want to hurt people. He just wants to be left alone and to be loved. He gets frustrated because people constantly attack him without him understanding why, creating a tragic cycle where his attempts to defend himself only make things worse. Joe Fixit is the gray-skinned Hulk who originally was the first version to appear, though later stories explained he was actually a separate personality. Joe represents the teenager Bruce never allowed himself to be. This version is intelligent, cunning, and morally ambiguous. Joe works as an enforcer for crime organizations, enjoys expensive clothes, fine food, luxury, and has no problem using manipulation and underhanded tactics. He is notably weaker than the Savage Hulk in raw physical strength, but makes up for it with craftiness and strategy. Joe typically emerges at night rather than through anger. Professor Hulk, also called the Merged Hulk, was created when Bruce attempted to integrate his personalities. This version combines Banner's intelligence, the Savage Hulk's strength, and Joe Fixit's cunning into one being. However, Professor Hulk is not actually a true merger, but rather another separate personality representing Bruce's ideal vision of himself. Professor Hulk has Bruce's mind in the Hulk's powerful body, making him both brilliant and strong. The downside is that as he gets angrier, he actually becomes weaker, eventually reverting back to Banner form. This was a safety measure Bruce built in to prevent this personality from causing the same destruction as the Savage Hulk. The Devil Hulk was one of Bruce's earliest personalities, created in his mind as an imaginary protector when his father was abusing him. The Devil Hulk served as an alternate father figure, protecting Bruce from harm. When Bruce first gained his powers, he often transformed into the Devil Hulk, which is why in some early comics the Hulk spoke intelligently and cruelly, only emerging at night. The Devil Hulk is clever, ruthless, and incredibly powerful, with an unmatched healing factor. He wants to protect Bruce, but does not care who he has to hurt to do so. Bruce feared this personality and tried to bury it for years, though the Devil Hulk is not inherently evil despite his frightening nature. The Green Scar, also known as World Breaker Hulk, developed during Bruce's time on the planet Sakaar. After the Hulk went on a rampage that destroyed parts of Las Vegas, a group of superheroes called the Illuminati decided he was too dangerous to remain on Earth. The Illuminati consisted of Iron Man, Doctor Strange, Mr. Fantastic, Black Bolt, and Professor Xavier. They tricked Bruce into entering space on a mission to destroy a dangerous satellite, then used the shuttle to launch him out of the solar system. Their plan was for him to land on a peaceful, uninhabited planet where he could live without hurting anyone. However, the shuttle passed through a wormhole and crashed on Sakaar instead. Sakaar was a brutal planet ruled by a tyrant called the Red King. The wormhole had weakened everyone who passed through it, so when Hulk arrived, the Red King's forces were able to subdue him. They placed an obedience disc on him that forced him to follow commands, then sent him to gladiatorial arenas to fight for entertainment. Hulk was forced to battle other prisoners and monsters for the Red King's amusement. During this time, Hulk formed a team called the Warbound, with other gladiators including a rock creature named Korg, an insect warrior named Miek, a shadow priest named Hiroim, and others. These warriors swore loyalty to each other until death. Eventually, Hulk and the Warbound led a rebellion against the Red King and overthrew him. Hulk became the new king of Sakaar and brought peace to the war-torn planet. He fell in love with Kyera, a woman who had served the Red King but joined Hulk's cause. She became his queen and became pregnant with his child. For a brief time, Hulk found genuine happiness and peace on Sakaar. He had power, respect, love, and was building a family. However, tragedy struck when the shuttle that brought Hulk to Sakaar suddenly exploded, destroying the capital city. The explosion killed thousands of people, including Kyera and Hulk's unborn child. Devastated and consumed by grief and rage, Hulk blamed the Illuminati for sabotaging his shuttle. He gathered the surviving Warbound and left Sakaar to return to Earth, seeking revenge. By this time, Hulk had absorbed massive amounts of radiation from Sakaar, making him far more powerful than ever before. When he arrived on Earth, he had evolved into the Green Scar personality, an intelligent warrior who combined strategic thinking with overwhelming physical power. The Green Scar is possibly the strongest Hulk incarnation, surpassing even the Savage Hulk's raw strength while maintaining rational thought. When the Green Scar's rage reached its absolute peak during his war against Earth's heroes, he became World Breaker Hulk. In this state, Hulk emits such massive amounts of gamma radiation that he becomes a living weapon capable of destroying entire planets. A single step from World Breaker Hulk caused earthquakes across the entire North American continent and nearly destroyed the eastern seaboard. He fought and defeated nearly every hero on Earth, including the Avengers, the X-Men, and the Fantastic Four. Even the Sentry, one of Marvel's most powerful heroes with the power of 1,000,000 exploding suns, could not defeat him. The war only ended when Hulk discovered the truth. The explosion that killed his wife was not caused by the Illuminati's sabotage, but by loyalists to the overthrown Red King seeking revenge. Learning this truth made Hulk even angrier than before, pushing him to radiate energy that threatened to destroy the entire planet. Iron Man used satellites to blast Hulk with energy that temporarily stripped away his powers, forcing him back into Bruce Banner form and ending the threat. Bruce was then imprisoned 3 miles below Earth's surface in a special containment facility. The Hulk story demonstrates that gamma radiation does not simply give people superpowers. Instead, it amplifies whatever already exists within a person, making them more of who they truly are. For Bruce Banner, a man with buried trauma and fractured personalities, the gamma radiation gave physical form to his psychological complexity. Each Hulk represents a different way Bruce copes with pain, anger, fear, and the desire for acceptance. The tragedy is that no matter which personality emerges, Bruce can never find lasting peace. He remains caught between his brilliant mind and his destructive power, forever struggling to control the monster within, while that monster simply wants to be understood and left alone to exist without persecution or pain. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on, we have Galactus. Galactus was not always a cosmic being who devoured worlds. Billions of years ago, before the current universe even existed, he was a normal man named Galan, who lived on a planet called Ta. His home existed in what is called the Sixth Cosmos. The universe that came before the Big Bang created the current universe known as the Seventh Cosmos. Ta was considered the most advanced civilization in that entire universe, a paradise world where science and society had reached incredible heights. However, all universes in Marvel follow a cycle where they expand after a Big Bang and then collapse back together in what is called a Big Crunch. Galan's universe was dying, collapsing in on itself as all matter pulled toward a central point. As the universe died, a radiation plague began killing everyone on surrounding planets and eventually reached Ta itself. Despite being brilliant scientists, the people of Ta could find no cure for this plague. As death spread across their world, Galan convinced a small group of survivors that rather than waiting to die from disease, they should pilot a spaceship directly into the heart of the cosmic cauldron where the universe was collapsing. They chose to die gloriously by flying into the Big Crunch itself. The intense radiation and heat killed all the other passengers in the ship, but something strange happened to Galan. Instead of dying, he found himself filled with incredible new energy that kept him alive even as reality collapsed around him. At the exact moment when his universe reached its final death, Galan encountered something called the sentience of the universe. This was the living consciousness of the dying, Sixth Cosmos itself, similar to what eternity represents in the current universe. The sentience revealed to Galan that though both of them would die in these final moments, they could survive together by merging into a single being that would be reborn in the next universe. The Phoenix Force, a cosmic entity of life and rebirth, gathered all the positive emotions from every living thing in that dying universe to preserve them. The sentience merged completely with the mortal Galan, and from this union, Galactus was conceived. The remains of Galan's spaceship became a cosmic egg, a protective shell where this new being would develop over billions of years. When the Big Bang exploded and created the current universe, Galactus drifted inside his cosmic egg while reality formed around him. He floated inert for countless eons as stars ignited, planets formed, and new life began spreading across the cosmos. His transformation was still incomplete, requiring enormous amounts of time to gestate. A member of an ancient race called the Watchers, named Ekche, discovered the egg and watched as the being inside began to emerge. Ekche recognized immediately that this creature would become incredibly dangerous and destructive. As a Watcher, Ekche had the power to destroy the egg and prevent Galactus from ever being born. However, the Watchers live by a sacred oath to observe events without ever interfering, no matter what happens. Following this oath, Ekche allowed Galactus to complete his birth despite knowing the devastation that would follow. When Galactus finally emerged from his cosmic egg, he had been transformed into something beyond human comprehension. His body was composed of pure energy that needed constant replenishment to survive. Starving desperately for sustenance, Galactus looked around the newly formed universe and detected a nearby planet rich with life energy. This planet was called Archaeopia, and it became the very first world that Galactus consumed. He drained all the life force from Archaeopia, leaving behind only a dead husk of rock. Most of the planet's people died, though a small fleet of ships managed to escape before their world ended. These survivors became the first beings to witness what Galactus truly was, a force of nature that devoured entire planets to sustain his existence. After consuming Archaeopia, Galactus constructed an enormous world ship that he named Ta-2 in honor of his lost homeworld. This construct was the size of an entire solar system and served as his mobile home as he traveled the cosmos, searching for planets to feed upon. At first, Galactus went centuries between feedings and sought out only uninhabited worlds that had the potential to support life but were currently barren. However, his hunger grew stronger over time, requiring him to feed more frequently. Eventually, he began consuming inhabited worlds when he could find no empty ones, viewing himself as a force of nature beyond concepts of good or evil. Galactus needed assistance finding suitable planets across the vast universe, so he began creating heralds who would scout ahead and locate worlds for him to consume. The most famous of these heralds was Norrin Radd, who would become known as the Silver Surfer. Norrin lived on a utopian planet called Zenn-La in the Deneb star system, a world of incredible technological advancement where disease, hunger, poverty, and crime had been eliminated for thousands of years. Despite this perfect society, Norrin felt restless and yearned for adventure and purpose that his stagnant civilization could not provide. When Galactus arrived to consume Zenn-La, Norrin made a desperate bargain to save his world and his beloved Shalla-Bal. He volunteered to become Galactus's herald in exchange for Galactus sparing Zenn-La forever. Galactus accepted this deal and transformed Norrin into the Silver Surfer by coating his body in silver skin and granting him a portion of the power cosmic, the fundamental energy that fuels Galactus himself. The Silver Surfer rode through space on a surfboard-shaped craft that could travel faster than light, searching for energy-rich planets that Galactus could consume. Norrin had originally intended to lead Galactus only to uninhabited worlds, staying true to his noble intentions. However, Galactus tampered with the Silver Surfer's soul and suppressed his memories and emotions so he would not feel guilt about dooming billions of lives. This mental alteration allowed the Surfer to guide Galactus to inhabited planets without the conscience that would have stopped him. The Surfer served Galactus loyally for nearly a century before his suppressed humanity began to resurface. When the Silver Surfer brought Galactus to Earth, everything changed. Something about humanity touched the buried noble spirit within Norrin Radd. The Fantastic Four convinced the Surfer to rebel against his master and helped him recover his true self. Together, they threatened Galactus with a weapon called the Ultimate Nullifier, the only device that could actually destroy the Devourer of Worlds. Faced with this threat, Galactus agreed to spare Earth forever. However, as punishment for his betrayal, Galactus trapped the Silver Surfer on Earth by creating an invisible barrier that prevented him from leaving the planet. The Surfer remained imprisoned on Earth for years before eventually regaining his freedom and confronting Galactus about the soul tampering. Galactus admitted he had manipulated the Surfer's soul to prevent him from feeling guilt, revealing that even this cosmic being would resort to deception to survive. Galactus holds a unique position in the cosmic hierarchy of Marvel's universe. While incredibly powerful, he exists below beings like Eternity, Infinity, Death, and the Living Tribunal. Eternity represents the living embodiment of the entire universe itself, containing all space and time within its form. Death represents the concept of mortality and the end of all living things. Galactus serves as a third force that exists between these two fundamental concepts, maintaining balance in the cosmos through his actions. By consuming planets, Galactus prevents any single reality from accumulating too much life energy and destabilizing the cosmic order. His existence is not random destruction, but serves a necessary function in maintaining universal equilibrium. The Living Tribunal stands above nearly all cosmic beings as the supreme judge and arbiter of the multiverse. This entity has three visible faces representing equity, vengeance, and necessity, with a fourth blank face representing a mystery. The Living Tribunal has the authority to gather and judge cosmic beings, making decisions that even entities like Eternity must obey. When Galactus temporarily transformed from a devourer into a life-bringer who restored dead worlds instead of consuming them, other cosmic entities Master Order and Lord Chaos brought him before the Living Tribunal, arguing that this change disrupted the cosmic hierarchy. The tribunal ruled in Galactus's favor, stating that the cosmic balance of the new multiverse was still forming and his new role was acceptable. In rage over this decision, Master Order and Lord Chaos merged together and attacked the Living Tribunal, actually managing to kill the judge temporarily by exploiting the flux in cosmic hierarchy. Galactus fought these entities and proved that cosmic hierarchies could shift through the power of ideas and purpose rather than just raw strength. Galactus's existence serves another crucial purpose that most beings do not understand. His continued survival keeps imprisoned a terrifying entity called Abraxas, who represents the dark counterpart to Eternity's creative force. Abraxas embodies pure destruction and seeks to annihilate not just one universe, but the entire multiverse. The cosmic entity Eternity arranged for Galactus to exist across all realities, specifically to keep Abraxas sealed away. When the main universe's Galactus died temporarily, Abraxas immediately escaped from his prison and began traveling across alternate realities, killing different versions of Galactus from thousands of parallel worlds. Abraxas used the decapitated head of one alternate Galactus as a homing beacon to target Earth, causing tears in the space-time continuum. Abraxas proved nearly impossible to stop, easily overpowering Earth's heroes including the Fantastic Four and killing the Silver Surfer. The villain obtained the ultimate nullifier and seemed poised to destroy everything in existence. Only when Franklin Richards, the reality-warping son of Mr. Fantastic and Invisible Woman, combined his powers with his sister Valeria, were they able to resurrect Galactus from his star-like remains. The newly restored Galactus reclaimed the ultimate nullifier from Abraxas, revealing that this weapon was actually a part of his own being. Mr. Fantastic then used the nullifier to destroy Abraxas and remake reality, ensuring that Abraxas's reign of terror never happened and everyone who died was brought back to life. This demonstrated that Galactus's role extends far beyond simply consuming planets. His very existence holds back cosmic threats that would otherwise destroy all of reality. Galactus's true form cannot be perceived by most beings in the universe. When different species look at Galactus, they each see him in a form their minds can comprehend, usually resembling something from their own culture or religion. Humans see him as a giant humanoid figure wearing purple and blue armor. Other alien races see completely different appearances based on their own frames of reference. Only when addressing fellow members of the cosmic hierarchy does Galactus appear in his true form as a humanoid star, a being of pure energy shaped vaguely like a person but radiating with cosmic power. This appearance reflects his nature as the physical embodiment of a previous universe, a living cosmos walking through reality. The relationship between Galactus and the Silver Surfer remains one of the most complex in Marvel's cosmic stories. Despite the betrayal and imprisonment, these two beings share a connection through the power cosmic that links them across space and time. The Surfer occasionally returns to serve Galactus again when the cosmic balance requires it, understanding that despite the horror of Galactus's actions, his existence serves a necessary purpose in maintaining reality itself. Their story represents the tragedy of beings caught between duty and morality, between survival and conscience, forever bound by forces greater than their individual desires. Galactus stands as proof that the universe operates on rules beyond simple concepts of good and evil. He is neither a villain seeking conquest, nor a hero protecting the innocent. He is a force of nature, a fundamental part of reality's structure whose existence ensures that life and death remain balanced across all creation. To understand Galactus is to recognize that the cosmos requires destruction as much as creation, endings as much as beginnings, and that some beings exist not by choice but by cosmic necessity. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on, we have Venom, Eddie Brock plus Symbiote. Venom, Eddie Brock plus Symbiote. The Venom symbiote comes from a species called the Clintar, alien creatures that bond with living beings to form powerful partnerships. These symbiotes were created by a dark god named Knull, an ancient being who awakened in the primordial darkness after the sixth cosmos died and before the Celestials began creating the seventh cosmos. When the cosmic beings called Celestials brought light into this new universe, Knull became enraged at the invasion of his peaceful darkness. He forged All Black, the Necrosword, from the living abyss that surrounded him. All Black, the Necrosword, was the very first symbiote entity Knull ever created. This powerful blade allowed Knull to kill one of the Celestials, proving symbiotes could be deadly weapons. From there, Knull continued crafting more and more symbiotes to build an army capable of fighting against the light and reclaiming the darkness. Knull controlled every single symbiote through a hive mind connection, which meant all of them were linked to his thoughts and forced to obey his commands without question. He used the symbiotes to conquer entire planets and spread darkness across the universe. The corrupted early symbiotes acted as Knull's weapons, overwhelming hosts and enforcing Knull's domination across countless worlds. This horrific campaign continued for countless ages as Knull waged an endless war against anything that represented light and life. Knull ruled over the symbiotes as the King in Black, directing them to eliminate entire civilizations and snuff out the light from existence. But a crucial event changed everything. During a battle with a symbiote dragon called a Grendel, the Asgardian god Thor struck with his lightning and severed Knull's hive connection to the symbiotes. This forced the symbiotes to develop individuality and independence for the first time. As the now independent symbiotes bonded with different hosts across countless galaxies, they started experiencing emotions and concepts they had never encountered before. When symbiotes connected with beings who understood love, honor, compassion, friendship, and other positive feelings, these powerful ideas transformed the symbiotes themselves. The symbiotes realized they wanted to form real, meaningful partnerships with their hosts, instead of just using them as disposable tools. This desire for true connection made them fundamentally different from what Knull had originally intended. Eventually, enough symbiotes developed genuine free will that they found the courage to turn against their dark creator. The massive rebellion against Knull led to an epic battle where countless symbiotes attacked him all at once. They managed to imprison Knull by forming a living cage around him, gathering together in absolutely enormous numbers to create an entire planet made entirely of symbiotes with Knull trapped and powerless at the very center. This living cage became known as Planet Klyntar after the Hive decided to become a benevolent species. The word Klyntar translates directly to cage in the symbiote language, chosen to always remember their crucial purpose of keeping Knull locked away forever so he could never threaten the universe again. The planet Klyntar became the new homeworld for symbiotes who wanted to become heroes and protectors rather than destroyers. The good symbiotes carefully hid all records of Knull's existence and attempted to create a completely new identity for themselves as a species dedicated to helping others throughout the cosmos. The good symbiotes on Klyntar formed a group called the Agents of the Cosmos, peacekeepers who responded to cries for help across space. These agents could hear something called the Voice of the Cosmos, which guided them to places where people needed protection. But not all symbiotes joined this heroic path. Some remained corrupted by their time serving Knull and continued being parasites who enslaved their hosts. These corrupted symbiotes formed their own group called the Symbiote Imperium and continued spreading chaos, giving the entire Klyntar species a bad reputation across the universe. The Venom symbiote is described as the 998th generation of its lineage in the story Venom: First Host. Though later stories do not always reference this specific detail, it hatched from an egg on Klyntar. It was different because it genuinely wanted permanent bonds with hosts and to protect them. This made it an outcast among corrupted symbiotes. The Venom symbiote was imprisoned and sentenced to death. During Secret Wars, Earth heroes were transported to Battleworld by the Beyonder. Spider-Man found a machine holding the imprisoned symbiote and accidentally released it. The symbiote bonded to him as a black costume, responding to his thoughts and mimicking Spider-Woman's design. Spider-Man wore it without knowing it was alive. Spider-Man noticed the costume moved on its own at night, taking his body out without permission and draining his energy. When he learned it was an alien parasite trying to permanently bond with him, he went to a church and used the intense sound waves from the church bells to force it off. The loud sound caused the symbiote extreme pain, and it separated in Web of Spider-Man issue 1, left rejected in the church. Journalist Eddie Brock worked for the Daily Globe, writing articles about the serial killer Sign Eater. Emil Gregg confessed to being the Sign Eater in letters to Eddie, who interviewed him while protecting his identity. Under pressure, Eddie revealed Gregg as the Sign Eater. That same day, Spider-Man captured the real Sign Eater, Detective Stan Carter. Greg was just confused and falsely confessed to crimes he never committed. Eddie's career was destroyed. He was fired, his wife Anne left him, and his father disowned him. Eddie blamed Spider-Man instead of accepting responsibility for not verifying his sources. He could only find work writing for cheap tabloids. Eddie lifted weights to cope but fell into depression and became suicidal. Eddie went to the same church where Spider-Man rejected the symbiote to ask God for forgiveness before ending his life. The symbiote sensed Eddie's hatred for Spider-Man and recognized their shared enemy. The symbiote had retained Peter's muscle memory, powers, and subconscious knowledge from their time bonded together. Modern retcons confirm the symbiote also stored Peter's identity imprint, meaning it knew Peter Parker was Spider-Man. It bonded with Eddie, combining their anger into something dangerous. Eddie Brock and the symbiote became Venom. Eddie named himself Venom after the poisonous stories he wrote following his career collapse. The symbiote gave Eddie Spider-Man's powers: super strength, wall climbing, and web slinging using organic webbing. Venom blocked Spider-Man's spider sense, making Spider-Man unable to detect attacks. Their first meeting in The Amazing Spider-Man issue 300 terrified Spider-Man. Venom spent years as a villain focused on killing Spider-Man, terrorizing Peter and his loved ones, but Venom had an unusual code of honor about protecting innocents. He rescued drowning children and stopped dangerous animals from attacking people. Venom believed he was righteous in targeting Spider-Man while protecting those he deemed innocent. During a fight with assassins Styx and Stone, the symbiote was seemingly killed. Eddie was imprisoned at Rikers Island with serial killer Cletus Cassidy. The symbiote had survived and rescued Eddie, but accidentally left a piece behind. This piece bonded with Cassidy and became Carnage, who killed hundreds across New York. Venom felt responsible and worked with Spider-Man to stop Carnage, beginning his transformation from pure villain. The turning point came when Spider-Man saved Eddie's ex-wife Anne from falling debris. Seeing Spider-Man risk his life for an innocent made Venom reconsider everything. Eddie made a deal. Venom would stop hunting Spider-Man and never reveal his identity, and Spider-Man would not actively pursue Venom. Venom moved to San Francisco and protected a community of homeless people in underground tunnels. This was documented in the 1993 series Venom: Lethal Protector. The title described Venom perfectly. He protected innocents but used violent methods. During this Lethal Protector era, Venom began eating criminals and villains to satisfy the symbiote's needs, though he focused on protecting people he considered innocent. The Life Foundation captured Venom and forced the symbiote to produce 5 offspring: Scream, Phage, Lasher, Riot, and Agony. Eddie escaped with Spider-Man's help and became the accepted protector of the underground community. Venom's anti-hero role continued through the 1,990 seconds with occasional returns to villainy. After Anne's suicide, Eddie blamed Spider-Man and their truce ended around 1,998. Eventually, Eddie developed cancer and separated from the symbiote permanently, believing it made him too violent. He sold the Venom symbiote for $100 million and donated most of it to charity. Eddie volunteered at the F. East Center, run by Martin Lee, secretly the criminal Mr. Negative. Lee had powers to switch between positive and negative forms. His positive side healed while his negative side corrupted. Martin Lee touched Eddie and cured his cancer. This healing interacted with trace Venom symbiote in Eddie's bloodstream, fusing his white blood cells with symbiote remnants. When Mac Gargan attacked Eddie with the Venom symbiote, it tried rebonding with Eddie. Eddie's body violently rejected it, and a new white symbiote burst out. This anti-Venom symbiote had healing powers, could cure diseases, remove toxins, and purge other symbiotes from hosts. It had no mind of its own, giving Eddie complete control. Anti-Venom was not weak to fire or loud sounds. Eddie became a hero, using healing powers to help people with addictions and exposing Mr. Negative. When a virus turned Manhattan's population into spider monsters, Eddie sacrificed anti-Venom to create a cure, saving millions. The military captured the Venom symbiote after Mac Gargan's arrest and started Project Rebirth 2 to create a super soldier. They chose Flash Thompson, a war veteran who lost both legs in Iraq. Flash was Peter Parker's former bully who became his friend and Spider-Man's biggest fan without knowing they were the same person. Flash accepted because the symbiote formed legs for him, restoring his mobility. Flash became Agent Venom, going on Black Ops missions. The military used drugs to suppress the symbiote's violence and limited bonding to 48 hours at a time. Flash was equipped with a multi-gun that transformed into any weapon. He joined the Secret Avengers, Thunderbolts, and Guardians of the Galaxy. During his time with the Guardians, Flash traveled to planet Klyntar, where the symbiote was cleansed. The Klyntar appointed Flash as a space knight and agent of the cosmos. Flash later became Agent Anti-Venom, using a synthetic anti-venom created from remnants found in Norman Osborn's blood. In 2018, Flash made his final sacrifice fighting Red Goblin. He used anti-venom powers to heal Mary Jane and Aunt May, giving Spider-Man time to win. Red Goblin killed Flash with electrical attacks. Flash died a hero, having evolved from bully to one of Marvel's most selfless characters. Eddie reunited with the Venom symbiote in 2017, becoming more heroic and less violent. He controlled the symbiote's bloodthirsty nature and avoided killing. When Null broke free from Klyntar, he shattered the planetary structure and released the symbiote hive, leading symbiote dragons to Earth. Eddie fought in the massive King in Black battle and became the new King in Black with power to control all symbiotes, using this to defeat Knull permanently. After becoming King in Black, Eddie passed Venom to his son Dylan Brock. Eddie has since bonded with a weakened Carnage symbiote to control it. The core truth about Venom remains constant. He walks the line between hero and villain. Venom protects innocence and fights Earth's threats, but uses brutal violence traditional heroes avoid. Venom eats criminals, kills bad guys, and weaponizes fear, yet saves lives and risks everything for the defenseless. The evolution from villain to anti-hero to hero shows decades of growth. What started as pure hatred transformed into a partnership that learned to care. The Venom symbiote went from Knull's weapon of darkness to Earth's protector. Eddie Brock went from a disgraced journalist consumed by rage to a father and guardian willing to sacrifice himself for good. The Venom story is about redemption, growth, and the idea that even creatures born from darkness can choose to become something better. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.